Money Vikings. Hope you're doing well. Let's take a little walk. Let's talk about an important topic. And I've got some ideas in terms of how to address it. But the topic today, the discussion, is about guilt we feel about spending money. And, I think this is a really pervasive and a real thing. And I think it needs some discussion. And we're going to get into that. And I think it needs some strategies to manage it. And we're going to get into that as well. And I've got a few strategies and ideas that I've used. I have definitely dealt with this over the years. I have dealt with a feeling of guilt when spending money. It's gotten better as the years have gone on. And in my last video, when I talked about the different sort of epochs of wealth building, during the hustle stage, it's probably good to have a healthy sense of guilt about spending some money. But it does kind of lead to an underlying sort of unhealthy relationship with money. And so that's what we're going to kind of talk about as we get a little exercise here. One thing to keep in mind about spending money on things is that when we have a lot of stuff, it can end up being that the stuff doesn't really add that much more value to our lives. It kind of just, I don't know, we end up getting, it's the whole hedonic treadmill thing where, the more you have of something, the less it seems to be valued at times, which is just seems to be a law of nature, I guess. So keep that in mind. But let's talk first about, let's talk a little bit about what money is, because I think that might help get to the root of the problem of feelings of guilt around spending money. So, in my opinion, money is an efficient way to exchange goods and services and an efficient way to sort of manage capital. It's an efficient way to store value and energy, right? Because that's kind of, we can put our money into things, and that's a form of energy and intention. So here's the deal. We have to spend money to live our lives. I mean, no one gets a quote unquote free life. You have to spend money in order to live your life. So right away, that kind of puts you in this category of, maybe not feeling as guilty about spending it, because you're going to have to spend some, to have a great life. And what I would challenge you to do is to try for a minute to imagine yourself near the end of your life or at the end of your life. Would you feel good about a concept where you basically had amassed, $5 million in a bank account, but you never did anything? You never raised kids, you never owned a home, you never, bought that thing you wanted, you never went on that trip that you wanted that would have expanded your mind or would have been an experience to remember. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think we need to kind of challenge ourselves there. But here's some other ideas in terms of, feelings of guilt around and surrounding money. One big thing I would say that's pervasive today is social media is a bit out of control and can really screw with our minds and our feelings and our emotions. And so I would say taking a social media break might be a really great first step in terms of managing feelings around money. What that does is it gives yourself a sense of, you can sort of reset a little bit, recalibrate. And, the problem with social media is that you're seeing this curated situation of the best of all these people's lives. And everyone has a different life with like different goods, good sort of elements and bad elements, and then just sort of the mundane stoic elements. And you're only seeing the cream of the crop best all the time. So that's definitely affecting us. If you have guilt around money and spending, the other thing to keep in mind is that it's definitely time to take an honest look at I would say, at a couple of things, at your budget, at your debt, and at your net worth. So let's take those one by one. If you're having guilt around spending money, you've got to take a hard look at your budget. You have to have a macro sense of where your money is coming from how it's coming in, and then you have to have a sense about where it's all going out. And the problem is most people just don't take the time to do that. I'm not a huge fan of like meticulous, crazy budgeting like every day. I don't really find it that. I'd rather look at, do research on investing. But I definitely have built a budget, and I usually revisit it every like once or twice a year. I'll look at it and make adjustments. But it definitely gives me a general sense if the money is flowing in the right direction, right? So you have to have that. So I think that's going to definitely help with feelings of spending guilt. And we're going to need this. We're entering the holidays now, so there's going to be there's an increase in spending. So we have to think about these things now. It's really important. So I would say the last thing would be to keep in mind that there should be room in your budget. And this is what I do like about Ramit and his sort of budget philosophies. So you have to keep some room in your budget for no guilt spending. Have a specific amount for no guilt spending. I think this is a very powerful idea. And, that's going to be different depending on a person's income level and their fixed costs. But, whatever it might be, maybe, $100 a month, $500 a month, maybe $1,000 a month, depending on your budget, but have an amount that you can spend that is just absolutely guilt-free. It's anything you want. It's that impulse buy. Have that room in the budget. I think that'll really help. So I hope these ideas help. Let me know what you think about, your feelings of guilt around spending money. Where do they come from? I think there's a lot of good stories out there about how we relate to money, how we engage with money, and feelings around it. And I think guilt is a very pervasive one in our society. Again, it's one of those things, that's the whole idea of Money Vikings. There's not a lot of teaching or discussion, at least in my lifetime, there hasn't been a lot of teaching or thought about how to feel about money and how to manage it wisely. So anyway, I hope this helps you, and we'll see you on the next one. So you guys all take care.